Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We are Walk the Block. We're navigating digital finance. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Arizona passing some of the, or at least getting the furthest with their Bitcoin reserve legislation. We also have our first commentary and critique on the bill, Paul Atkins SEC. And we're going to be talking about what exactly is an altcoin season and what are the requirements you need to actually have one coming. All that is going to be on the show tonight here on Walk the Block. I am your host, Zenith, and I'm joined by our regular cast and crew. Up first, we have Agent J. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing excellent, my friend. Had a fantastic weekend, a fantastic start to the week. We had a stream at the usual 7:45 a.m. this morning. I was joined, as usual, by Dace. I saw Tracker there kind of trickle in at the last minute. I know he was busy in the morning, so it's okay that he missed the stream. But we made some really, really, really good calls at the very tail end of the stream. We gave some of our members entry points, and if you entered at the long position that we were talking about, then you are squarely in profit, and you should probably bring your stop loss up to about 94.8K and keep those profits locked in. So it is a good day, man.
So excellent. Far. Glad you guys got off to a killer start there. All right, up next we also have Dace. How you doing, my man?
I'm well. Been busy trying to recover from a very busy work week during the Easter week. Last week was all catch up, and so getting back into the grind of things. Got up to the gym, checking all the normal routine boxes here on a Monday. Glad to be here.
Excellent, glad to hear it. And last but not least, our international man of mystery, Tracker. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, guys. Always look forward to Mondays. It's always a fun time and a good show. Ready to roll. Let's do it, man.
Well said, sir. Let's do it indeed. Up first tonight, we are going to be talking about Arizona and what we got going on there. All right, coming to us from cryptobriefing.com. Arizona approves the first state Bitcoin reserve bills. Arizona clears bills to invest up to 10% of public funds into Bitcoin and build a digital asset reserve. Arizona lawmakers approved two groundbreaking bills today that could establish the state as the first in the nation to create a Bitcoin reserve. House Representatives passed the bill, Senate Bill 1025 and Senate Bill 1373, both measures now awaiting the governor's signature. The legislation would allow Arizona to invest up to 10% of the Treasury and pension assets in digital assets, including Bitcoin. The bills authorize the use of seized crypto assets and future appropriations to build the reserve, incorporating on-chain auditability and standard risk controls. Arizona moves mirrors similar legislative efforts underway in Texas, Florida, and New Hampshire. Additionally, I got a little bit of a visualization for you here. So, coming to us from bitcoinlaws.io, this is a quick little graphic to show you where everything is going on right now. You can see that Arizona has jumped to the top of the list because they've got through the introduction, committee, chambers, and now it is one step away from being enacted. Right behind them, we do have New Hampshire, we have Texas, and then we have a plethora of other states that are still introducing the bills and going through committee. But as it stands right now, Arizona just claimed first place by a good margin. Gentlemen, what do we think? What's the timeline looking like on this one? We think.
Well, Katie is, I believe, pro-Trump, so that means if this is going to be aligned with Donald Trump's vision for digital assets in general, then I don't think we're going to have a very difficult time getting this passed through our governor's desk. Curious to see, Z. I have not read the details of the particular of this particular bill, either 1025 or was it 1373. When they say 10% of public funds, do they specify what's the structure there? Because you know how the US SBR said that they're not going to use taxpayer dollars in order to buy more Bitcoin, and they were going to find tax neutral alternatives in order to do so. What does public funds indicate? Does that mean it's along those same lines, or are they actually going a different route than the US SBR and actually investing like potentially taxpayer dollars into funding the Bitcoin reserve?
It says here, invest up to 10% of treasury and pension assets, specifically.
Okay, so like the money that would go into buying U.S. Treasuries would instead go to buying SBR.
Treasury and pension assets in digital assets, including Bitcoin. That's right. That's what it
Okay.
says.
Not too sure about what the pension thing means. It's not really my wheelhouse, so I can't really comment on it. But it would be interesting to see what the breakdown of this is, because obviously we know that any state that establishes an SBR doesn't necessarily have to follow the parameters of the U.S. SBR, right? Because if enough people voted within the state of X, like let's say the state of Texas, and they're like, yeah, man, we don't mind using taxpayer dollars to buy more Bitcoin, have at it. Right. Each state is an independent entity, right? So I'm very interested to see how all of the bills play out in those details. So, but bullish.
Well,
Very bullish news indeed. Go for it, Tracker.
Yeah, I just wanted to stay here. So there's 22 other states that are working or considering the proposal. So Arizona's at the head of it. They're all going to pay very close attention. First person across is the beta tester to these processes. So they're all going to be watching, see how it works out. And then to put in perspective, Arizona's local pension system holds around $58 billion in total cash and other holdings. And, that was up 2020. I'm sure it's higher now. So pretty substantial amount of money if you're only talking 10%. I was looking at how much treasury amounts that they actually hold. So I was looking to see what potential buying power they would have there. Of course, in mind, up to 10%. They're probably not going to do 10%. What's your guys' guess on the percentage? I think they'll just kind of, step into it, maybe 1%, 0.5%, 2%.
So you don't think that they're going to funnel the entire 10% into buying digital assets? You think it's just going to be a portion?
They'll probably put it in tranches, and move a 0.5% over a year or whatever, I would imagine.
Yeah, something of that nature. I just don't see, because going all in full sweep, that's a little aggressive. I don't know. Have they not heard of DCA? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I just asked Grok, and it says approximately 32.2 billion assets under management for Arizona State Treasury, managed by the Office of the State Treasurer. So 32.2 billion, 10% of that is a nice chunk of money.
Mm-hmm.
Then 32 of that, and then 57.8 billion of their local pension system too.
Is that million or billion?
Billion.
Yeah,
I thought
because if they're gonna end, so just talking about the Treasury reserves, if that's 10% of that, hypothetically, if that's 10% of the Treasury reserves, that's $3 billion plus. That's a normal Monday morning for Michael Saylor, but for the state of Arizona, pretty big deal. It's a pretty big first step.
So 32 billion and 50 billion. Yeah. So you're talking about 82 billion.
Yeah. So
8.2. Yeah, well, a little less than that. Yeah, seven something.
Yeah.
Sure. But here's the thing, though. That's one state. So you can see the wave coming is what we're all trying to get at here. Even if they do 2% or 3%, all these other, just 22 or 21 other states going through this process, including the Federal Reserve. So you can start to wrap your head around the potential numbers of buying it off the thing. Now, the question I have is, will they buy spot? Are they going to actually own the asset? Are they going to own the paper? What does that mean?
That's an excellent question. I wonder if the details of the bill stipulate the method of holding it. If they're going the ETF route, or if they're going to have some official Arizona ledger, sitting around. Who knows?
It sounds like, as far as the Arizona stuff goes, they're actually going to have their own specific ledger separate. But here's the actual text of SB 1373. The Digital Assets Strategic Reserve Fund is established, consisting of monies appropriated by the legislature and digital assets that are seized by the state. The state treasurer shall deposit digital assets that are seized by the state in the fund through the use of a secure custody solution by a qualified custodian, blah, blah, blah. Monies in the fund are continuously appropriated and are exempt from the previous section 35-190 relating to the lapsing of appropriations. Item B, the state treasurer may not invest more than 10% of the total amount of monies deposited in the fund in any given fiscal year. Section C, the state treasurer may, loan digital assets from the fund to generate additional returns if the loan does not increase any financial risk to the state.
It's interesting. So they're going to actually own their own assets, is what it sounds. That clearly is what it states. Now
Well,
the other
yeah.
thing
look
is,
at the second
what
part
happens if
line.
it what happens if it
says
goes up in
exchange traded
value?
product, too. It
Sorry,
says
go ahead,
exchange
Dave.
traded product too. Like it says that it could be either. It actually stipulates that it could be cold storage or like an ETF product. Sorry, Track. Go ahead.
No, good for clarifying that. Then the other question I have is, okay, 10% of the treasury on their balance sheets. What happens if the asset starts to become, I don't know, that 10% or 5% grows to be 40% of what are they going to have to unload it? Are they forced to sell? Are they going to hold it? I mean, it brings up another question. I don't. It's interesting. Like I said, they're beta testing this for the entire United States. So good for them. Ballsy. They are the El Salvador of the United States.
There's always pros and cons to being the first to the market. I mean, you are first to the market, but you are the beta testers. So I don't know if beta testing is something that people are very excited about when it comes to their personal funds, or I guess in this case, government funds that they've paid into via taxes. Jay,
Yeah.
is Arizona an income tax state?
Yes. We don't have as high an income tax as other states like California or Oregon, but we are an income tax state. We are generally a
Yeah.
purple state, so we swing in both directions here in Arizona.
Very true. Very
Last
true.
year,
Put in-
last 4 years it was Biden, and then this 4 years it was Trump. So, or so we're a purple state by nature.
Just to put in perspective, when I say beta tester, think of everybody who are the first people to download the update for their smartphones, right? They end up having all these problems. That's what the beta tester essentially is out there. Beta testing is just a term we use in software development, where it's a controlled test environment. You're not trying to really go live. You're trying to test, see how it works. So that's kind of what Arizona is when we say beta tester. They're first out, so they're going to find all the problems, all the concerns, all the issues. They're going to hit it all. This is why everyone's going to pay very close attention to them and figure out where all the impediments and landmines that they're going to hit are going to start at. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Most definitely. I think that overall, though, the general sentiment that I'm seeing in the market right now is that when it comes to these crypto reserves, is that primarily everyone is focusing on Bitcoin because that's what they know the best and they believe is the most stable. And I think it's also probably at the front of their minds because Bitcoin really has been the standout of this cycle up until this point. So that's the one that gives me the most confidence for people establishing these kinds of reserves. And if you look by the numbers, Bitcoin as it stands right now, we have a Bitcoin ETF and we have an Ethereum ETF. The Bitcoin ETF does 10x the volume on any given day than the Ethereum ETF. So it seems that the focus is really over there. They have the ability to diversify into other tokens, other products that they see fit. But as it stands right now, I think that that Bitcoin is kind of the bell of the ball still at this point in the cycle.
I would agree with Zenith. I think I was going to point out that it's interesting that it's structured into two bills, right? And that one is maybe a bit more ambitious or a bit more digital asset progressive, let's say. I think it's curious that it gives the powers that be the ability to squash one and keep the other. Curious if they both get signed in or if only one does, right? That would be an interesting outcome.
Definitely. I think that I do believe we're still in the ETF cycle. It has largely been dominant the entire time. And until something on the ground changes, I think that we're going to continue to see Bitcoin do very well here towards the end of the year. I do believe that there is a possibility of an altcoin season happening as we get later in the year and people start maybe trying to get a little more aggressive or rotate profits into something else that could potentially grow even more. So that's where the altcoin season thing comes into mind for me. But as it stands right now, this kind of news, I think is very bullish for Bitcoin specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Bullish for Bitcoin specifically. But that doesn't mean that we can't get any residual benefits down along the line too. But it is primarily bullish for Bitcoin. And to be quite honest with you, this is a personal opinion, but I think it would be extremely irresponsible to invest a significant amount of funds into anything besides Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum, right? But
very, very true. Alrighty, tell you what, gentlemen, let's move on to article number 2 of the evening. I know this is my entry, and I might be a little biased because I'm the legal and government guy. But we have first critique and commentary from the Paul Atkins SEC. As Paul Atkins is sworn in as the SEC chair, the crypto industry braces for a major shift in regulatory tone. What does his appointment mean for investor protection and the road ahead? Sworn in on the 21st, replacing Gary Gensler. They interviewed a handful of folks. So Chris Perkins, president of CoinFund, spoke with the host Savannah Fortis and described his excitement regarding the new SEC chair, predicting a reduction in regulatory uncertainty under the new administration. Quote, "We were under this regulatory reign of terror, under the Biden administration," said Perkins. "Investors in assets, they're very comfortable taking market risk, but they're not comfortable taking reputational risk. And along with that is regulatory risk." He did have a shift in the regulatory climate and how it could catalyze growth. He says, quote, "Now, again, you're taking the personal liability off. So in a way, you have this perfect storm of new institutional capital coming in and new developers coming in. And I think that this is going to be the age for venture and value creation." Additionally, we have talking about clarity and not deregulation. He says it's a signal shift towards let's take a step back and define what these are, what they look like, and how they should be regulated. Continues on to talk about what to expect from the Atkins era. He says, "I think the IPO rush you will see probably towards the end, maybe months 10, 11, or 12. It's coming for sure." Go. So at a glance, talking about how they're hoping that there's going to be innovation. Again, it's not deregulation, but clarity. So they are still expecting a lot of regulation from this SEC, but it should be clarity and it should not be done through legal enforcement. But one of the interesting points for me is I think he actually puts it out there and says that he thinks October, November, and December are going to be the months to actually get IPOs on the market for crypto-based projects. What do you guys think?
I think the timing is interesting, right? Just 8 hours ago, Howard Lutnick went on Bitcoin Magazine. We'll drop the link and Walk the Block so you can go find it. And they were also talking about the approval of the the federal Bitcoin strategic reserve and how between Atkins, Lutnick, and Bassent, this is not a new technology for them, right? They're comfortable with Bitcoin, they have experience with it, and so they've been able to really be aggressive and hit the ground running with updating the government's policies to better suit the technology, to better suit where it fits in our culture, and to not have it legislated through enforcement, which is what it's been in the past 4 years prior to this administration.
I was seeing more and more of the large tech companies. I kind of include Goldman Sachs in there, but Facebook, Google, a lot of them are starting to pivot away. Not to say they're getting away from cloud development. That seems to be the trend over the last, so many years now, but those data centers are still collecting a lot of data. But there's one big problem that's going on in the AI space, and that is the cost of the CPU developments. And there's only but so many CPUs going on. Of course, now this issue with, China. So Taiwan Semiconductors, things like that's causing a lot of issues because Taiwan Semiconductors produces most of the CPU AI chips. So there's a big bottleneck starting to form. I don't know if that has something to do with why these large tech companies are starting to pivot more towards, because they are starting to go towards crypto technology. And it might be because of obviously the regulation opening up, and also it might be because it's lower hanging fruit for them to go after instead of having to deal with AI. They're still going to be heavily in the AI space, but it's interesting. They seem to be pivoting away from the more focusing on cloud and going more into crypto or cryptography type development. So that's starting to happen more and more. And that's Amazon's involved in that. A lot of big companies are starting to shift over to that area. So yeah, I think this is going to absolutely be an explosive. And I think you're going to see very similar like an IPO explosion, just like you had during the dot-com bubble. I think you're going to see a rush to people using stuff. They're not going to be sure what it's going to do, and they're going to do it. And a lot of companies are going to fail. It's not because of the technology. It's going to be because they're not sure how to market fit this going, or how to roll out products to the customers and what they're trying to solve. I think people are just going to be throwing money at it. It's kind of like how AI now is. Like people are just backing up dump trucks full of money into AI, but they're not even sure how to use this or what kind of models they're going to go after. I don't know. Interesting times. It just seems like there's technology advancements are coming out so quickly, the large tech companies can't even keep up with it. So they're kind of stretched thin. And I think you're going to see, but yes, I do believe you're going to see an explosion in the crypto development. Regulation, everything's been glazed out. I mean, it has been just basically paved for coming, with technology growing in this world. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of companies come out of it that are solving actual real world problems. It's going to be fascinating.
I agree. When it comes to the crystal ball future from the SEC here, I think it's going to come in two parts. I think first we're going to see more of existing stuff, and the existing stuff as it stands right now is ETFs and iterations on ETFs. We know that people have been applying for staking features as part of Ethereum ETFs, so that's a potential there. Additionally, we've seen plenty of other ETFs get filed, whether it's Doge, Solana, a mixture, like a true smattering or a basket of Bitcoin and Ethereum and other crypto ETFs. So that's more of the same. More than, or getting some of the new is probably going to be what they were talking about in the article for October, November, December, which is that's going to be the actual timeline it's going to take to get some of these new IPOs or new crypto businesses and product launches going. So until people get time to actually develop, package everything nicely, and then be able to launch it with good marketing and good salesmanship, I think it's going to take a little more runway. And that's why we're going to see that later in the year, as the article was alluding to. So when I'm looking at it right now, it's those two parts. We have more of the same, and then we have new stuff coming once they have a little more time in development.
Yeah. So I'm actually more interested in what happens further down along the line, because the fact that Atkins came out and said all that he said, it's not any surprise to me. We knew that we were going to get that kind of clarity and regulation anyway. And so I am more forward looking now as to, okay, 6 months down along the line, around that October, November, December timeframe, how much has the path cleared? Because if the path has cleared significantly, and now people have inroads in order to create businesses here in the United States, and they know that they're not going to get slapped on the wrist with lawsuit after lawsuit, then what you're going to potentially see is something to the tune of what happened in way back when. Tracker mentioned it, correct? The .com boom. But if I were to compare it with something that happened in our own industry, the ICO boom in DeFi summer of 2021. Yeah, heading into that crazy altcoin run into the latter half of the 2021 bull market. And so if we were to get the very same IPO craziness, but now in a more, yes, regulated, but in a more sustainable fashion, because not every schmuck with an idea can just IPO. Now there are guidelines and rules that must be followed. Otherwise, you will probably end up in prison. Then that could set us up for that post the post halving year run that we have all been expecting, especially for those of us who follow market cycle theory. And that lines up perfectly with the timelines of, well, if Jerome Powell actually starts, if he ends QT and or starts QE at the tail end of this year, then that gives us that extreme high probability that we do extend into 2026 in terms of that bull market, right? So if they can clear the road and make it so attractive for people that by Q4, right, October, November, December of this year, people are IPOing left and right, because now this is the place to do business in crypto. Now this is the place to establish a crypto business. Then yeah, you're going to get something akin to DeFi summer, but maybe a bit less degenerate, but still mad gains.
That's true. I think it's notable that up to this point, we've seen two ends of the extremes, which is that we've seen Bitcoin do very, very well, and we've also seen meme coins do very, very well. Mm-hmm. And that middle gap that's been missing there is all the DeFi products, all the other L1s, all the other altcoins that kind of should come before the more degen stuff. But I think that one of the things we've seen, especially this cycle, is the availability and the ability to create meme coins and lower effort tier projects, whatever you want to call it, the less technically intensive is what I'm getting at here, which is you're not trying to invent a new L1 blockchain that does some sort of technology or data transfer differently than everything else, which is we had Pump.Fun come out on Solana. That really fueled a lot of the stuff over there. I think that craze helped fuel some of the other meme coins on other blockchains and whatnot. But it was just because they had the ability to do that easier, and there was the interest and the desire to do it. So I do still think that I'm with you, Jay. I think that there's a very real possibility that we can get a good DeFi summer, good altcoin summer before we actually hit the top of the 4-year cycle when Bitcoin actually tops out. But as far as the availability of projects, I think that it really feels like we've been lacking that altcoin season at any point in this entire 4-year cycle.
We've had short spurts.
Exactly.
Well, think about it. There's a ton of great companies in crypto already that are just looking for investors to try to switch this over to IPOs. I mean, you got tons of companies innovating and doing all types of things on various networks. It hasn't got any love because of due to regulation, so they haven't been touched. It's not because people haven't been out there innovating. There's tons of interesting ideas and concepts people have been building out. So yeah, I think the one narrative that's you're gonna see catch fire, I think, is gonna be the yielding. And that's one area we've talked about before. If banks, they already got the green light, can start investing in stable coins and earn yield on those stables, I think that's going to be a highly attractive area that you're going to see explode. I know other fringes of areas we've already looked at, GameFi and all these other little niches that there's been great innovation. It just hasn't got any love because of regulation. Those areas could take off some areas. But yeah, it's not lack of innovation by any means. It's just they need investors and TradFi to come together with these companies to kind of give them that floor, that liquidity to really boost them up, and then get the IPOs. And launching IPOs certainly will do that.
For sure. Yeah. Excellent. All right. I'm going to take a quick moment here. We do have some folks showing up in the chat tonight. Want to give them a quick shout out before we go to a clip. We got Centurion54X. He says, "Hola, amigos. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for getting here nice and early. Showing up at 4:21 p.m. We launch at 6, so hour and a half early. Not bad, not bad." We got Iron Hands Investing, buddy of mine and friend of the channel. And he also happens to be an Arizona resident. He says he's up there in Tempe. So
man, Iron Hands, we definitely got to link up, brother. I did not know there was a fellow DGen here in Arizona that's part of our community. So yeah, man, would love to touch base with you, hang out, shoot the shit, talk crypto. And if you're a weeb, we'll get along very fine.
He's a fellow Moonganger, so you guys already got that in common. And then last but not least, we got Chad Donner Schwans. He says, "Hello, fellow base crypto bros. Good to see you, my man. Glad you catch the show live." Alrighty, Mr. Dace, we are turning it over to you, good sir. What do you have for us here?
Yeah, this is the meat of the clip that I referenced here a minute ago in terms of the coordinated front between David Sachs, who we just mentioned in the article, Howard Lucknick, and Scott Bissett, on sort of all of them sort of revising the federal stance on crypto as a whole together. Let's see if this is going to work.
I know that you've personally talked about your task of...
Days, can you pause it real quick? When you click share screen on StreamYard, make sure that your share audio is toggled on because it's very silent.
Well, it looks like it is toggled on. I don't know why it wasn't coming through.
Tell you what.
Perhaps I'll just drop the link for us in the comments. Let's see. Or I can shoot you the link, Zenith, if you want it.
Let's try this. Let me know if we can hear it.
They're there. So I know that you've personally talked about your task of bringing in, I think, $1 trillion to the United States. I'm wondering if Bitcoin fits into that equation at all in your mind, and whether there's any sort of maybe synergies with the Treasury, with Percent, with Sachs, that would help facilitate something like that, where Bitcoin would be part of those calculations.
Well, having David Sachs in the government with me is the best, because really you have 3 amazing proponents for Bitcoin in the government, of course, led by the number one, which is Donald Trump, of course, and you have David Sachs and myself. So for a long time, we've been Bitcoin proponents, right? Way before we're in the government. We're not newfound lovers, right? This is an old love affair for us. Yeah. So we can talk about it, we think about it together, and I think That's why we've been able to deliver so quickly on the campaign promises that Donald Trump said. He said he'd have a Bitcoin strategic reserve. I mean, think of how quickly David Sachs and I were able to help the president deliver on his promise and deliver that Bitcoin strategic reserve.
Yeah, appreciate that. One thing.
There you go. Is that the entirety?
Yeah, just to sort of show it really is a explicit coordinated front, across all these offices. It's not something, it's not a publicity stunt for Trump to put on a dinner and have a press conference, right? There's real heavy hitting private investor folks with that background who now are in these positions of power and are restating how our government looks and treats crypto. And so it's a wild thing to watch. It's very, very cool thing to watch if you're a fan of the space, if you're involved.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he if DJT did that on purpose, but if he did, then good move for him, because Secretary of Commerce and Treasury Secretary aren't exactly low-level positions. So the fact that you were able to fill those cabinet members with people who just happen to be very pro-crypto, who walk the walk, who talk the talk, who were big investors in Bitcoin and, I don't know, maybe other digital assets prior to becoming part of his cabinet, whether that's a coincidence or whether that was an actual strategic move, I'm happy how it turned out, because even if Donald Trump himself doesn't know the details that we would like, doesn't know crypto to the degree that we know crypto, at least we know that the cabinet is filled with people who are spearheading that cabinet that know a thing or two about crypto. And that's that obviously includes Sachs. I mean, the guy has a one of the most popular crypto podcasts out there before he became crypto czar, and then obviously Bassett as Treasury Secretary, and then you have Lutnick as Secretary of Commerce. So yeah, man, it's bullish for sure.
2 points. One, I saw that was put out by I Trust Capital. People who aren't familiar with them, they've been around for a little while now, to where people can invest their traditional investments like Roth IRAs and things of that nature into actual crypto. It's considered an essential exchange for your retirement funds. It's pretty innovative, and it has been out for almost, like, I don't know how long they've been out, at least 4 or 5 years. They've been out for a while, and also gold and silver and other things. So they've been pretty innovative on that aspect. And then the other thing is, you talked about Trump having dinners and stuff. I'm curious to see what kind of crew shows up of the top 100 or 1,000 Trump holders of the coin for the venture capitalists. He's going to have that dinner. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah,
I know.
based on the
number one. I know who's number one on that list.
we know who's number one, but the press releases that I was seeing was saying that they're going to be looking at the top 220 holders of the Trump meme coin to get invited to that specific event.
As long as it's not a security issue. What happens if somebody international? There's things like that. They're going to have to go through and screen them, of course. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you own the coin, you get invited to have a really schwanky dinner with the president. I mean, that's not too shabby. It's a nice little perk. Is there maybe an NFT around the corner for them?
Well, for them, it would be NFT round 3, because the DJT NFT collection actually had 2 different versions. So Trump's been doing the NFT stuff for a hot minute now. And the Trump coin was just kind of like the newest iteration of that. If they do another one, I wouldn't be surprised if it caught on pretty well, because it seems like both the first 2 NFT collections did pretty well, actually.
Gang, you know what's crazy about? I know a lot of people did not like that the president released a meme coin, and that his wife also released a meme coin. That really rubbed a lot of crypto bros the wrong way. However, what I can say about Trump is that he's one of the first people in a large scale. Obviously, he has the capability because he's the United States president, to add utility to people owning his stuff. We spoke about how artists could take advantage of that. Like, hey, I release, Luke Bryan coin, and whoever has the most Luke Bryan coin, when you attend my next concert, you get a meet and greet, right? The top 10 will get a meet and greet with Luke Bryan backstage, right? Or like, come on stage with me, play guitar, like whatever it is. Trump is doing the exact same thing now, right? Top 200 holders of the Trump meme coin get a special dinner with the president. That's kind of crazy, right? Like, to be able to to rub elbows, shake hands with the president, talk to him about your particular projects, get you in his mind space, get your product in his mind space. That's a big deal. I just wish the number one guy wasn't Justin Sun. Like, I think the number one could have been somebody else. But I think that's a missed opportunity for a lot of crypto bros, man. Like, if you're a really big company and you saw the president launch a meme coin, I think it should have been a tell for you, like, yo, he's going to add some kind of utility to this, probably accumulate a bag, get within the top 1 to 200. So that means whenever he does say, hey, top 100, top 200, top 10, like, you get special dibs on X, Y, and Z. And you got that. Because like Z alluded to earlier, he did that with his NFTs, right? He gave special privileges to people who hold a majority of his NFTs. So it's like, it wasn't such a big leap to assume that he was going to introduce the same kind of utility to the Trump meme coin as well. Right. So say what you want about the president launching a meme coin, right? That's what happens when you have, hey, no more Gary Gensler. Like, we went completely in the opposite direction. You got the president and his wife launching in a freaking meme coin, right? You take, if Donald Trump is volatile, you take the volatility that comes with having a volatile president, but he's also doing the stuff that a lot of people were expecting other, like, people to do with their tokens, right? With their assets,
Yep,
like add utility to it. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Just to add to that, Jay, when you put out those NFT, that first collection or even the second collection, he said that they would be randomly selecting, a winner. You would basically have a personal dinner with Trump. I mean, pretty, one-on-one dinner, or, I'm sure Secret Service will be there, but, a dinner with Trump. But I mean, think about if you were to win, that NFT would have won, you could then auction off that NFT for, and now it becomes a lottery ticket for some. The best, I mean, I know not get off topic, but still the most, I mean, to give an idea of people innovation on NFTs, I still think what Rihanna did was pretty, I mean, hater or like her, it's irrelevant here. It's the concept where they put out an NFT, I think of the 100 NFTs for this one collection of her. And if you own it, you owned a, 100th of the rights. It's basically 100th of the contract rights for that song, which I thought was pretty slick. And now you can see more artists also, independent artists starting to develop their own stuff that can then use that as funding to kind of almost like an IPO, if you think, to help fund them, to get them up and going. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things to come out. But yeah, I would agree. Yes, Trump has definitely been on the curve of that. And it's going to be interesting to see more of this as it comes. But yeah, really interesting stuff.
The song ownership is interesting. It's part real world asset. It's part NFT. I mean, it's a bunch of things at once. That's interesting. I'm curious about that. I'll have to look into more of that.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more. I mean, when the NFTs came out, the music industry was going to be all over that, because especially people like, what was the Guy Macklemore that came out of like, what was it, Washington? He was like Seattle area, I think it was, an independent rapper. They went all the way up to win awards as an independent person, promoting himself just on YouTube and doing stuff like that. But you could see more of that cracking into this, basically a very controlled industry, because now you could have funding from other people outside that are very, whether for a lot of reasons, but to support, artists that don't get a shot at things. So yeah, you could raise money in any types of fashion. I mean, these are just, there's a lot more now to branch out, cut out all the middleman. You start to see, and I think that's one area you could see IPOs coming out, leveraging that technology a lot to bring the masses together, kind of disrupting, almost like in the sense of, if I want to put on a concert, I can bypass Ticketmaster. I could start selling my tickets and working just with the venue and ticket and this, thing launching, and cut out Ticketmaster out of the equation or whatever. These big monopolies that are going on. So I think you can see stuff like that. Look at the taxi industry, how Uber disrupted that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that coming. So it's over the next few years. Oh yeah, you're going to have some disruption.
Definitely. By the way, we had a fantastic episode last week talking about real world assets and turning everything into real world assets in the blockchain. Good article led it off, and we had an excellent discussion. So go check that one out if you want to hear more about that. Other than that, though, tonight we are talking about altcoin season and what those require. So, Mr. Dace, I believe we have a screen share for you. I'm going to go ahead and bring you up here.
Yes, sir. So, if the question is what makes an altcoin season, right? How do you know when they're coming, what they look like? The ISM manufacturing and the ISM services, PMI, are useful charts in my mind. Once I learned what they are, I find them really compelling and really interesting to look back on previous cycles, on previous price action, to see how these numbers correlate. As far as I'm aware, you can't trade these charts. Maybe you can somewhere, somebody out there. But I'm pretty sure they're just statistics taken from U.S. economic activity, whether it is purchasing or services. Above 50 means expansion, below 50 means contraction. And so if you sort of zoom out here, you can see we have flirted with this 50-point line, but not been above it since October 22. Last high was March of 21, which is, if you guys recall, was a very critical time for anybody in the altcoin space. You know, I think that the other one, which one is this? This is manufacturing services. I think it's peak. 10 years, go here, is a little more pronounced, and it's also later. So November 21. There is an aggregate, which is a chart of both of them, and they release a number, which is an averaging of both of them as well. These figures come out the first week of every month, and they're 1 month retroactive. So we're about to get April's here on the first week in May. If we could break above 50 on either of these charts, I think we'll be on our way to the conventional looking altcoin cycle and altcoin movement that folks are used to seeing in previous cycles. You see here a nice defined top in the 2018 cycle as well. And so, yeah, I think that this is a good reason and a good clear indicator of, hey, until U.S. businesses are expanding and not contracting, it just risk on assets are not going to perform like they do when that environment is in a state of growth. And so this is the sort of the litmus test for can your economy support a high risk on bull run of the nature of which we saw in 21, which is mapped out there.
Yep.
So I thought that might be helpful.
Yeah. Whether it's manufacturing or services, PMI, like you said, it's a reflection of the market expansion of the manufacturing and services industry. Yeah. And you could look at it within a vacuum and say, okay, these businesses and services are expanding, which means they're buying, they're hiring, they're taking out loans. So even if you look at it in a vacuum, it's good. But if you don't take a look at it in a vacuum, you could also start connecting dots in other locations as well. Usually when businesses expand, it's also a reflection of what? It's also a reflection of loose monetary policy, which means money is cheap. That's why these services and these manufacturers are expanding, because they can take out loans, they can build new buildings, they can build new infrastructure, they can hire more people, maybe they can invest into their own business, they can create more partnerships. And so whether you look at it in a vacuum or not, that indicator is a good indicator to tell you that if this thing is creeping up close to that mid 60s level, it usually means that policy also is loose along with that behavior, right? Because businesses will not be expanding in a period of very tight monetary policy when money is very expensive to borrow.
Very true. To get a little more specific when it comes to determining an altcoin season from the crypto side of the house, there's a few different indicators that people have used in previous ones. And everyone kind of has a little bit of their own take on it. So this is coming to us from blockchaincenter.net. They have a tracker here. Everything is indexed between 1 and 100 of whether it's Bitcoin season or altcoin season. These guys have it as anything over 75 is altcoin season. Anything under 25 is Bitcoin season. Right now, we're sitting at 18, and we've kind of been that way since pretty much March. The beginning of March. The way that these guys calculate it is that they look at the top 50 performers over the last 90 days. And specifically, they are excluding stablecoins as well. So this is top 50 excluding stablecoins. That's how they break it down. By the way, people might remember blockchaincenter.net from a Telegram Tuesday that the four of us did talking about the rainbow chart and other potential top indicators. So shout out to all you guys that caught that one. But outside of that, it's not the only one. CoinGlass has their own as well. Very similar metrics, and they're sitting at right about 18 as well. And additionally, I think this one does the best explanation of their own metrics, and that's going to be CoinMarketCap. So currently, CoinMarketCap has us at 20 out of 100, but they actually break it down, and their metrics is slightly different, which is they use the top 100 coins performance over the last 90 days as the metric to determine whether or not it is or is not an altcoin season. So if you come down here, they do a great breakdown of everything. So they say that if 75% of the top 100 coins outperform Bitcoin in the last 90 days, it's altcoin season. Remember, stable coins like Tether and DAI, as well as asset-backed tokens such as WBET, wrapped Bitcoin and staked Ethereum and Chainlink are not included. How can I tell when it's altcoin season? During altcoin season, several distinct market characteristics emerge. Increased altcoin dominance. Altcoins collectively gain prominence in the cryptocurrency market. In the recent altcoin season in May 2021, the market combined market capitalization of the top 100 altcoins reached around 130% of the capitalization of Bitcoins. Rapid price appreciation. Altcoins experienced significant price increases across the board, often outpacing the growth of Bitcoin. For example, large cap altcoin prices achieved 174% returns versus Bitcoin's 2% during altcoin season from February to May in 2021. Many narratives pop up, but are not limited to just one or two trends. And then lastly, we have FOMO, everyone's favorite. Overall market sentiment during altcoin season is typically bullish, driven by optimism about the potential for altcoins to deliver substantial returns. FOMO mentality is evidenced by high 24-hour trade volume across all large cap coins, leading to an increased buying pressure and price momentum. Yeah, so there you go. Based on these indicators that come from the crypto sector, you might notice that they're kind of lagging indicators. So you're really not going to know that you're in an altcoin season until you're really in an altcoin season. So for someone that's trying to catch an altcoin season, that doesn't scream great advice to look at these indicators as a buying opportunity. If anything, these almost serve more as top indicators for altcoin seasons. What do you guys think?
Yeah, look, if you go look at that, so we actually look at that Bitcoin to altcoin oscillator chart on Telegram Tuesday calls. Anytime I'm hosting a call, we'll typically cover it. And like you said, it's not world's best. You know, it's a bit of a lagging indicator, but it's interesting to me when you look at the top on that, and then you go look at the ISM charts, right? It was when we peaked just above 50 in December, and altcoins ran like crazy. And that's, you know, that little tiny peak above 50 on the ISM results in that whole swing across the whole oscillator on that chart. It's astounding that, like, when you look at the ISM, the tops are at, you know, in the 60s, low 70s. We poked above 50 and that thing swung all the way to altcoin season. Now, not for long, right? Which is, you know, you can call it a failed altcoin rally, call it whatever you want. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see that thing just barely peaked above 50 and we swung all the way on that indicator. So again, I'm watching the ISM first, because if that thing rolls over, there's a good chance, like you said, that your lagging indicator on the other side will, by the time it reflects it, will be a month in, and that could be not too late, but potentially later than you want to be.
Question for you, Dave. The ISM number, is it pretty closely correlated to, I mean, how far back does it go where, I mean, I'm not trying to go back 30 years, but how well does it follow risk on assets? Did you back that in? I'm just curious to see how true that's been. Has there ever been any outliers?
No, I mean, typically it is a 1-to-1 mark of, you know, markets are going up when ISM's above 50. I've not seen an area there. I haven't done a ton of homework on it. I can definitely dig in and comment and get back to you if you so any of our watchers, please come join our chats. You know, keep up with us. We're posting about this stuff all the time, every day. Jay goes live all the time, and so check in, because we will readdress some of these conversations live in the chat as well. It's always worth hopping in. But I'll do some work on that tracker. I'll maybe see if I can put together a comparative analysis, see what it says.
Yeah, I was just curious because, you know, that we always have that one chart that looks like an old chart, periods when to make money, how it always comes in waves, and how it's been true. I mean, it's been true up until even till now, and everything comes in patterns, and it's, I think it's reflective that, you know, sometimes there's a lot of money and spending is on, and there's times where contraction when things are nobody wants to spend, and it does come very much in waves. And I think Zenith or one of you guys was talking about it, and I think it comes back to something with the bond market, or basically when things are getting reset. There's a reasoning behind it. It doesn't just happen because it happens. It happens to do something with I don't know if it's treasurers or bonds or something like that when they're recalculating their debt or something like that. There's something with that. I'd have to dive into it to know more about it, but I do know that there is a reason behind the waves and why everything comes in like these like 4-year cycles, or extreme optimism times in the history, and while there's also times of really tough times because of tightening, but there's always a reasoning behind it. But it's just eerie how it comes in. It does always come in waves regardless.
Very true. I guess final data point I would like to present tonight before I turn it over to you gentlemen is I do want to do a quick analysis of what we've seen throughout this cycle so far. According to the CoinGlass indicator, we did see an altcoin season peaking on December 3rd, 2024 and January 21st, 2024. Flipping it over to TradingView, we're looking at crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So let's go find those dates. We had the 4th of November. That's right here at the very peak when the total market cap for everything excluding Ethereum and Bitcoin topped out and made a new all-time high at about 1.15 trillion. And additionally, we also had the altcoin season indicator happen on January 21st. This is the weekly chart, by the way. You might notice that is this largest red candle right here. And for anyone that remembers, what happened in late January of 2024? There was a specific event.
Yeah, the fake news about the SEC approving the ETFs, and it giga dumped us back down. And then a few days later, they were like, yeah, actually, we're going to approve it anyway.
There you go. The approval of the Bitcoin ETFs. So that is the only 2 points up in this cycle that we've had in official altcoin season, according to the indicators. But also keep in mind, because it's a lagging indicator, that means that everything else before it had to happen before you actually got the indicator to pop, meaning that you effectively had a 90-day window where the altcoins outperformed Bitcoin. Finally, we can go over to total, or actually, let's take a look at dominance, because that is the correct one that I'm thinking about here. Back on the weekly chart. So let's take a peek. I wonder where that altcoin season may have been. Oh, look at that right there. December 2nd, 2024, when the dominance actually dropped down to 54%. And then going back into January of 2024, we also had this giant red candle in the dominance. And then the actual 22nd is the bottom of this green candle right here. I know, apologies, it's a bit zoomed out. Let's get in there. That one right there. So that is where we've seen the dominance so far. But this chart, I think, does kind of wrap up the points that I was making earlier, which is that this has largely been a Bitcoin cycle because Bitcoin dominance has really only gone up on aggregate. So that's what I'm looking at here. So,
we're about
gentlemen,
9 weeks. We're about 9 weeks of green weekly closes on the dominance chart. It's definitely not altcoin season yet, bro. 9 weeks of consecutive green weekly closes, and capping that off with a new all-time, what a new 4-year cycle high on dominance. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Plus those little blips. Well, those blips you said, Zenith, those were such concentrated. Hell, most of that in December was really a peak in the Solana meme activity. I mean, it was in other areas, but it was so concentrated to just little areas. So yeah, there has not been an altcoin season. Hell, I'd say the one that happened in March of 2024 when we had more movement there across the board than we did in that peak in December of 2024, because March is when everything seemed to be working. Like a little bit of GameFi was working, Gamble, everything started to seem like it was starting to bubble, like get going, and then it just kind of fizzed out.
Definitely. But I guess the final point I want to kind of bring us back to is let's talk about the articles that we brought up in the beginning. We had 2 different articles. We had one saying that Bitcoin is going to continue to get more support, this time from states actually buying up the Bitcoin reserve and the federal government also creating the Bitcoin reserve as well. Additionally, the counterpoint that we brought up was the SEC article talking about how we actually are anticipating more IPOs getting launched later on in the year. So Bitcoin still is being bought up by institutions and governments, the nation state aspect of this point. But now we also have a little glimpse into the future where we might see some IPOs coming out. How does that make you guys think about the overall futures going down the road for potential altcoin season?
It lines up with the dates, eh?
I would agree. It definitely lines up with the dates.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're a long ways away from those particular time points, but the fact that they all line up, is it possibly just a coincidence? Sure, absolutely. I tend to think when a bunch of variables point you in a similar direction, that they should not be ignored. So
I would agree. Tracker Dace, what do you guys think?
Look, I echo Jay's sentiment as well. I think if you do zoom out on that PMI chart, it's the longest we've been under 50. We've been under 50 one time longer, and it even had a fake rally in the middle of that downturn that was higher than our little tiny 50.9 or whatever it was. And so even though we were talking about the March rally or the December rally, and like relative to these other past rallies, those are, not even really rallies. They're corrections, let's say. And so, yeah, look, I'm thinking hold tight for monetary policy to change. When Fed Powell ends QT, that's when you're going to start to see markets start to build momentum in anticipation for the pendulum to continue to swing in the other direction.
That's very true. And to your QT point, by the way, we have seen the overall S&P 500 start to, it looks like it might be evening out a little bit, but I would still say chop and volatility are very high. But we did actually see the localized bottom when we had the tariff announcements. Granted, tariffs are on a bit of a freeze right now, and we will be getting more news of that coming up as we progress into that 90-day window. But as it stands right now, we're not in free fall. If anything, I'd call this just kind of chopping sideways.
It's markets digesting everything right now because they're trying to figure out what to do. Like they're having plan A through probably plan E, F, G at this point, on depending on what actions are taken. They can't just sit on their hands. They got to move and do something. So they're trying to probably plan everything out for the various landscapes. Like Dave said, once Powell, everything hinges on the Fed. As soon as they're willing to give the green light or hint that something's coming, that's when the markets are going to turn around. That's when, probably the indicator that Dace was showing is probably going to then jump over the 50. That's when risk on assets are going to start to get picked up because they're so cheap right now. A lot of them are very cheap, certainly in the crypto area. So I expect there to start to be a pick off there. It's, like I said, everything hinges on that. And yeah, the tariffs are there as well. I think, though, that if we get, that's the other thing. I kind of want there to be more pain, because if we get more pain, that's going to light a fire under Powell to probably take more action. So I'm hoping, whether or not the markets aren't really, the price of the market's almost irrelevant. I'm hoping the underlying fundamentals that Powell and them are looking at, their data, is looking really bad, or it's getting almost to the point where they've got to take action. That's what we want to see. So whatever that needs to happen, that needs to manifest is sooner than possible. Like, I mean, if we want to do it in May, June, sometime around there, I know the Feds are be talking, I think, in May. That's going to be the interesting time everyone's going to want to look at. That's going to tip, hopefully Powell will tip his hand and give an idea what they may or may not be looking at. And that's when we're going to start to see risk come on, if that's that indicator. So I think, going back to what you guys have said, everything's kind of quiet. We just made it through the storm. This is the quiet before maybe a second version of a storm, but more clarity is going to come out. Certainly if the tariffs get under control sooner than later, then Powell does what he does. Like, everything should start to fall in line, and that should fall in line with most people thinking cuts could be coming in June, along with everything else. Maybe these IPOs, like you said, next 10 to 11 months, that could be the telling. Who knows? I think when you start when you see this utopia of IPOs, a lot of them coming out, that's probably an indicator that we're at the top. When there's a bunch coming out, that could be the top indicator, depending on if it's 11, 10 months out. So, yeah.
I can understand that argument for sure. I think you hit it on the head there, though, which is that the Jerome Powell May press conference is going to be definitely one to watch based on how he's talking about things and any indicators or hints that he might drop in that. But we got May and we got June as the next two FOMC meetings, and those are potential points for rate decreases and actual change from QT to maybe even a neutral stance or going into QE. But outside of that, though, we will be moving to our final wrap up and ideas on the show. But first, real quick, from your your favorite YouTube channel. Folks, if you wouldn't mind giving us all the YouTube pleasantries, we really appreciate them all. Like, commenting, and subscribe, and a lot of love for all you guys out there on Replay Gang. Head on over to our Twitter and check it out. Go ahead and give it a follow. We drop show updates and a lot of news. Last week, we were giving a lot of love to all the Hexkins that were taking a bit of a victory lap for the SEC officially closing their chapter with Richard Hart. But yep, that is Walk the Block NDF. And for the people that have been following the website, you might have noticed there's something new going on there. I don't want to spoil it just yet, but be on the lookout. We have a lot of big stuff coming. We're going to be talking about it more next week, and we are very, very excited for everything we have going on over here, and we have a feeling that you will be as well. So keep an eye on that, but that is what we got for tonight. Gentlemen, final thoughts before we get out of here. Altcoin season not happening, maybe happening. You want to talk to Jerome Powell, see what he has to say? What do you think?
I'm going to be watching that ISM and also the Russell 2000. That's another one. So if you look, I won't pull it up, but it peaked in November of 24. And then our altcoin season peaked in December. So that's an interesting, maybe leading indicator, something to watch. Till then, you know where I'll be. I'll be here, brother.
Love it. Jay, what do you think?
My personal bias is that I think there is still a long way to go in this bull market. I don't think the bear market is upon us. But you know me, I take it level by level. So whether we get an alt season or not, doesn't matter to me. Money to be made on the way down as well. And just an opportunity to stack more Bitcoin, right? Because I wish I had stacked more Bitcoin when I first entered crypto.
For true. By the way, if people are looking for the market open streams, where can they find those?
Yes, you can jump onto our DGen Roundtable Telegram channel. That is where you're going to be able to find all of our market open streams. I stream every single day or as many days out of the week as my time permits between 7:45 and 8 a.m. That's when we usually start MST. And we go anywhere between 30, 45 minutes to, I think the longest we've gone is like an hour and a half. So sometimes we can get really extended. And there's a lot of things to go over in the charts, on the news. People have a ton of questions. But it's usually me and Dace and Tracker up bright and early, giving the people what to expect for the day to come. And like I mentioned earlier, if you entered during the position that we spoke about earlier today in this morning stream, you are sitting in pretty nice profits right now. Move your stop losses a bit higher to lock in some profits. And we'll see what the next day brings us, because I think there's still one more move to go to the upside before we get any major corrections downward. So you can find that on our Telegram channel, DGen Roundtable, t.me/ what is it? DGen Roundtable? Is that the handle for our Telegram? Aside from that, you can find me on Instagram at agent_P90hex. That's X, never mind. On Instagram at agent_J Schroth. And yeah, man, look forward for more things to come, because we definitely have a lot of products and services to come on, within the next few weeks, just finalizing some details here. But if you like the stuff that we do here, if you like the stuff that we do in the Telegram, if you like the stuff that we do in DGen Roundtable, you're gonna be able to find something to enjoy within the next few weeks.
Well said, sir. All right, Tracker, you had an excellent close there, but do you have any final points you would like to add on to that?
Just to add to it, so for those that don't understand what Jay's talking about, he expects there to be a little pump up. That's the fifth wave. If you don't know what that is, I advise you guys to start getting involved. And just to reiterate, every day that they're consider it being in a little team of people working together to kind of digest the markets together. So you're kind of in this community that we're trying to build and help out everybody, so you can understand this, because there's a lot going on. You got macros, you got technical analysis, volumes, what cryptos are doing, other news that are happening with inside the different communities. There's so much to digest. So we do a pretty good job of breaking it all down, staying on top of it, and then trying to be that flashlight in the dark for the many that are out there. Everybody had to start somewhere, right? So luckily, you have some people here that have already been doing this for a while, and we've all made mistakes in the past. That's what made us good. So we're trying to help people not to relive those same mistakes. So jump in, and I guarantee you'll learn some stuff.
Yeah, bro. I mean, you know how much people charge for the type of entries and stuff that we talk about in the Telegram channel for free, bro? Like, people charge a premium for some of this stuff, man. And we're over here just giving this info and this education for free. Won't always be free, but get in while the while it's still free.
It's true. It's no Ty Lopez closed group 10K a month over here,
Yeah,
but try to make sure that we give people a good value for the time that they spend with us. And speaking of which, we do have some definitely good folks in the crowd tonight. Do want to give a special shout out to Moonpill Rational Optics saying, "What's up, gentlemen? Good to see you, sir." He says, "Why even bother with all of it, though? It's all going to zero."
I feel
If a good chance Fiat is
cool. Then join us. We'll all be going down together then.
Exactly. We're the best sinking ship out there, and they're all going down anyways. Last but not least, we got Iron Hands throwing up one final triple thumbs up. Good to see you, my man, as always. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here. I am Zenith. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ZenithDI. You can find the show at Walk the Block NDF on Twitter and Instagram as well. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye on the charts and the horizons coming up. But until we see you guys next time, we hope that everyone out there continues to safely navigate the digital finance safely. And we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you very much. Good night.